Hello, dear friends. Today we continue our journey through the memoirs of Waffen SS Major General Kurt Meyer. Don't forget to rate the video and leave your opinion about this material. Well, let's begin. Contrary to the enemy's expectations, we did not attack on a broad front. Instead, we acted unconventionally, like a dagger strike. The battalion entered the city in a column. The only thing we didn't have was artillery. It took up positions and fired over our heads. I saw no churches, minarets, or other buildings, only machine gun nests defending the houses and the determination of the enemy. The battalion advanced deeper and deeper into the city. I lost my maps, but I knew where the barracks were. We wanted to get to them, because that was where we would find the command post controlling the enemy's actions. The enemy soldiers stationed in the square scattered as soon as our motorcycles roared around the corner. The enemy fired at us from all the windows, from the roofs, and from the gardens. The armored vehicles proved their reliability. Their weapons reached every suspicious-looking corner and forced the enemy shooters to seek cover. Under the cover of fire from the armored vehicles, two heavy 150mm guns took up position. From 200 meters away, they opened fire on the barracks. The result was impressive. Within 20 minutes, Monastir lost almost all of its defenders, with the exception of a pocket of resistance at the railway station. A sapper unit was fighting there, and the battle ended within an hour. Our offensive confirmed what we had learned during our years of study. A machine is a weapon. For several hours, prisoners who were indifferent to everything were brought in and disarmed. We captured an entire artillery battalion without firing a single shot. But the battle had to continue. We had no time to rest. Yugoslav forces were stationed at Lake Oid and occupied the Javat Pass, 20 kilometers west of Monastir, on the road leading to Lake Prespa and further on to Lake Oid. We knew that significant British forces that had landed in Greece were approaching from the south and advancing towards the city of Florina. I was under intense pressure to decide on our next course of action. We were alone in Monastir and could not count on support in the next 24 hours. I had to advance in two directions and also hold the city with the prisoners, artillery, and railway workers we had captured. Kras's reinforced company was ordered to cross the Javat Pass and attempt to make contact with the Italians who were in Albania, west of Lake Oid. Schroeder's company was ordered to reconnoiter the British positions south of the city and keep an eye on the enemy. If possible, they were to prevent the British from leaving the Klity Pass. Both company commanders looked at me in amazement when they received these orders. Hugo Kras shook his head in disbelief. The situation for Schroeder was not so bad. He had plenty of room to maneuver, and with the roads in good condition, he had every opportunity to conduct reconnaissance. The company set off. My motorcyclists, tank destroyers, sappers, and grenadiers rode past me with joyful laughter. They were heading into the darkness, into the unknown. The headquarters personnel prepared for defense and maintained radio contact. We maintained constant contact with the companies and received reports from armored vehicles. We knew their location at all times. Within minutes, Kras attacked a battery located in the orchards west of Monastir, which surrendered. I was still waiting for the order to open fire. By midnight, Kras had passed through several villages and was at the foot of the Javat Pass. Reconnaissance reported that the pass was occupied, and that a well-equipped defensive position had been set up along the ridge of the mountain range. Enemy reconnaissance groups were captured. The attack on the pass was to begin at dawn. Schroeder also acted successfully and soon reported from Greek territory, from Florina and Vevi. Between these two settlements, a curious incident occurred with the company. As the old saying goes, all cats are black at night. The next morning, Schroeder submitted the following report. I sent several reconnaissance groups from the crossroads and slowly followed the first one, which was conducting reconnaissance in the direction of Florina. Shortly thereafter, 2 reconnaissance armored vehicles emerged from the darkness, heading in our direction. Suspecting nothing, we continued to move forward. I thought they were ours. We only realized our mistake when they were 2 meters behind us. The 2 British armored cars stopped in front of us, then slowly moved on. They did not understand who was in front of them. Apparently, they mistook us for Serbs. Having calmed down, I moved the company a few hundred meters forward and waited for the British armored vehicles to return. Half an hour later, they fell victim to our ambush on the road. We were able to learn about the enemy's intentions. Australian troops, part of the British forces, occupied the high ground and blocked the valley with extensive minefields. Schroeder kept the British in sight and continued his reconnaissance by combat. Our heavy artillery and mortars apparently misled the enemy about the true strength of our forces, and the British did not venture out from behind their barricades. Cross's attack on the Javat Pass began early in the morning. The road here climbs steeply up the mountain, so a surprise attack was out of the question. Sharp turns followed, one after another. Almost vertical precipices, gorges, overhanging rocks and bare, treeless spaces completed the picture. The pass was 1,179 meters high. It was bordering on madness to risk attacking it with only 1 reinforced company. But our trump card was surprise. No one expected such a rapid advance, and it would never have occurred to anyone that a single company would risk attacking the pass. I went ahead to Cross's company before dawn. I was very anxious and wanted to participate in the attack myself. We passed the First World War Memorial just north of Monastir. There on the heights, in a foreign land, lie countless German soldiers. Suddenly, I saw 20-millimeter tracer shells from automatic cannons soar up into the mountains like pearl necklaces. Cross's attacking company could only be supported by armored vehicles. The motorcyclists turned into mountain rangers. All night long they climbed toward the pass on both sides of the road and found themselves right in front of the enemy positions on the ridge. Several Yugoslav positions were bypassed and attacked from the rear. The company commander led his soldiers into the attack quite energetically, and they quickly captured the Serbian positions on the ridge. Surprisingly, the psychological effect of using heavy artillery contributed significantly to the victory. The explosions of large-caliber shells created a hellish noise. I tagged along behind an armored vehicle and took part in the final battle for the pass. Tukocha's group eliminated the last pocket of resistance here. I found Hugo Cross behind a small chapel and congratulated him on his success. Several hundred prisoners were lying or standing in front of us. An entire battalion had surrendered. The result was simply incomprehensible. Our battalion could have withstood the attacks of more than 1 regiment at the enemy's position, but here, only 1 company on our side had attacked. The commander of the enemy battalion explained what had happened to us. He said, "When my soldiers heard yesterday that German troops had already reached Monastir and would appear in front of our positions by nightfall, their will to resist was significantly weakened. The very fact that we would have to fight German soldiers made my battalion nervous. Your bombardment, meaning the shelling from heavy infantry guns, finished the job." From the crest of the pass, we looked down at the dull glimmer of the blue Presna Lake, and from the mountain, we could see the bright lights of Florina. The city was ours, even before the enemy learned that their battalion, surrounded at the pass, had surrendered. We did not have any spare motorcycles at hand, but several armored vehicles were ready to descend into the valley and take the enemy by surprise. While we slowly made our way down, following the twists and turns of the serpentine road, Cross's company gathered and waited for their vehicles. We reached the valley without encountering the enemy and rushed towards the city of Ohrid. I was in Bugelsack's armored vehicle. This SS Obersturmbannführer was the commander of my best reconnaissance group and had an excellent grasp of the situation. The fleeing Serbs rushed away from the road and sought cover in the thickets. Others threw down their weapons and moved toward the pass. In this case, we could not stop. We had to enter the city and take advantage of the confusion. Under machine gun fire, the road became clear. The element of surprise worked perfectly. Within a few minutes, we were firing red flares into the sky. Cross's company soon broke into the city and sent reconnaissance teams into the mountains west of Lake Oid to establish contact with the Italians. Within a few hours, this was accomplished. The reconnaissance battalion's first task was completed quickly, successfully, and without unnecessary losses. I was proud of my soldiers and knew that I could rely on them for anything. I reported the latest success of my battalion to the commander of the Leibstandarte and went with him to Schroeder's company, where we met with the commander of the 1st Battalion of the Leibstandarte, Adolf Hitler, SS Sturmbannführer, Witt. His battalion had been ordered to take key positions held by the British defending the Klity Pass, thus enabling the Leibstandarte and the 9th Panzer Division to break through. The New Zealanders and Australians had dug in well on the mountain slope of the Klity Pass. The enemy had had time to build an impressive defense system there. Their artillery observers had a wide view of the plain where our troops were to appear. Monastir was a kind of gateway blocking the way from the Klity Pass, and the pass was the gateway from Yugoslavia to Greece. The enemy had all the advantages. Numerous minefields on the pass ruled out an armored attack. Our infantry had to take the heights in heavy fighting. Invasion of Greece. A sunny summer day, as is often the case in the mountains, gave way to a rainy evening, and then the icy cold of night. Snow covered the slopes. The soldiers of the 1st Battalion of the Leibstandarte, Adolf Hitler, encountered a significantly superior enemy force. It had dug in thoroughly in anticipation of our attack. It happened at dawn on the 12th. The whistle of heavy shells broke the silence. Heavy anti-aircraft guns began to destroy the detected pockets of resistance, and self-propelled guns rolled forward. I stood at the optical tube, watching the attack of the 1st Company of the SS Motorized Brigade, Leibstandarte, Adolf Hitler, under the command of SS Obersturmführer, Gerd Pleiss. Shots were still raining down from the mountain. The entire summit was shrouded in smoke, and the air smelled of earth and gunpowder. Suddenly, the artillery fire ceased. The infantry rushed into the attack, making their way up the mountain. Heavy self-propelled guns climbed up the slopes from the valley. We watched in amazement as the self-propelled guns moved forward. They climbed higher and higher, and then joined the battle. No one thought they could be used here, but now they were there, at the top, providing invaluable support to the infantry. Completely shaken by the unexpected German artillery fire, the British prisoners descended from the pass. They were tall, strong men and serious opponents. Our infantry advanced deeper and deeper into the British defense system. To clear the way for armored vehicles, our sappers set to work on the minefields. But the hardest work, driving the British from their positions, still fell to the infantry. We saw SS Sturmbannführer Witt standing shocked over the remains of his fallen brother, Franzl. Franzl Witt had tried to cross the minefield and was torn to pieces by exploding mines. Pleiss's company was already fighting directly below the pass. Self-propelled guns could no longer support our infantry. We could not hear the explosions of hand grenades, only see the clouds of smoke from them. The enemy's firing points were captured by our infantry in hand-to-hand combat, and the pass was taken by storm. The brave fighters of Pleiss's company prevailed over the enemy. More than 100 prisoners were taken. 20 machine guns and other military equipment were captured. Gerd Pleiss himself was wounded, but remained with his grenadiers until the end of the battle. The gates to Greece were wide open. However, the fighting continued. The 1st Battalion of our SS Motorized Infantry Brigade, Leibstandarte Adolf Hitler, attacked the retreating enemy at a furious pace. Enemy tanks were destroyed by anti-tank and self-propelled guns. Enemy aircraft tried to hinder our advance, but their bombs did not achieve the effect desired by the British due to the difficulty of bombing in the mountains. SS Hauptsturmführer Fendt, commander of the 88mm gun battery, was taken prisoner and spent the night in a British convoy. At dawn, our infantry freed him and also captured a significant number of New Zealanders. Early in the morning, the southern descent from the pass was taken. Large British and Greek forces attempted to regain what they had lost and push the Germans back over the pass. The British had a large number of tanks at their disposal, and they posed a serious threat to our vanguard. The 1st Battalion of the SS Motorized Infantry Brigade Leibstandarte Adolf Hitler had already reached open terrain, while our self-propelled guns were still on the mountain road, which created a dangerous situation. The first enemy tanks were already halfway to the lead company when SS Obersturmführer Naumann suddenly appeared with his two 88mm guns, opened fire, and put an end to the nightmare. One after another, the British tanks flew into the air or came to a smoking halt. The tank attack was engulfed in fire, death, and debris. While the 9th Tank Division was moving south, my reconnaissance battalion rushed towards Lake Kastoria. The shadows of night were already surrounding us when we saw the dark mountains and the Klisura Pass we needed. Our goal was the city of Korcha and the headquarters of the 3rd Greek Corps. But before that, we had to cross the Klisura Pass, which was a serious obstacle for our equipment, not to mention the enemy's resistance. As we climbed to an altitude of almost 1,400 meters, the surrounding mountains seemed to press down on us. Our progress was rapid. The two ridges stretching out before us were overcome in the next half hour. Before us lay a wide mountain range, with a road winding its way up it in a series of narrow, serpentine bends. There was no turning back. It was impossible to turn around. On the left, the mountains dropped steeply into a gorge, while on the right, sheer cliffs rose up. The small mountain villages seemed deserted and abandoned. In the last village, the inhabitants looked at us with horror. Their faces expressed question and expectation. We were overcome with a terrible tension. The smell of exhaust fumes filled the clean mountain air. The next ridge appeared right in front of us in several rows. The road veered slightly to the right and then crossed a narrow but deep gorge via a small bridge. We maneuvered carefully toward the turn in the road. At any moment, we expected a hail of bullets or rocks to rain down on us from above. We felt as if we were walking on hot coals. The vanguard stopped. The soldiers hid behind cover and prepared to open fire. What was happening? No one had opened fire yet. Overcome with nervous tension, I ran forward. Suddenly, a chasm opened up in front of us on the road. The bridge across the gorge had been blown up. The massive stone span of the bridge lay in a pile of rubble at the bottom of the gorge, forming a low saddle. We were surprised that the obstacle was not guarded, and there were no signs of enemy positions. We cautiously made our way forward to the collapsed saddle. The gorge was probably 15 meters wide and could easily be crossed by soldiers on foot. However, it was impassable for motorcycles. The lead platoon was ordered to cover the far end of the bridge and ensure the safe construction of a temporary bridge. No sooner had the Grenadiers reached the bridge debris than machine gun fire whistled around us. We could make out the enemy positions to our right, at the top of the mountain. Flashes of light from machine gun barrels indicated their location. Mines whistled through the air and exploded in the ravine behind us. These were enemy mortars trying to drive us away from the obstacle. My battalion was in a very unpleasant situation. It could neither move forward nor backward. There was no alternative. We were on the only road leading through the mountains to the rear of the 3rd Greek Corps. Only mountain troops could really handle crossing such a mountain range, not a reconnaissance battalion of a motorized brigade. But these thoughts were overshadowed by current events. There were no mountain troops available, so we had to do their job. And we did. At dawn, both of our motorcycle companies attacked the enemy positions, while I continued along the road with the drivers, headquarters, and a company of armored vehicles, distracting the enemy's attention from the direction of the main attack. We would only need heavy weapons and artillery later. Meanwhile, darkness was falling on the gorge. The enemy occasionally opened harassing fire on the obstacle. Our sappers drilled holes for explosive charges to level the approaches to the old bridge with an explosion. The explosion occurred, and in a matter of seconds, masses of earth and stones collapsed into the gorge on top of the bridge debris. Now my mobile reconnaissance battalion had turned into a construction battalion. Strong grenadiers dragged boulders and threw them down onto the bridge debris, a living conveyor belt passing stone after stone. Shortly thereafter, the first anti-tank gun crossed the temporary bridge. As soon as the new bridge was completed, 2 motorcycle companies began their ascent of the mountain range. The motorcyclists became mountain rangers. The Grenadiers had to climb 800 meters before attacking the enemy's pockets of resistance. Both companies went on the attack. Separated from each other by a chasm, each had to act independently. Although they took different routes, they had a common goal: the pass. Now the enemy was before us. The soldiers' fatigue vanished like the wind. Their nerves were tense, their instincts for action sharpened. Our soldiers used traditional tactics for rough terrain, supporting each other and finding ledges to hold on to as they climbed. Cross's company also moved away from the ravine to the right and climbed the mountain. They had the longest way to go. I took charge of the detachment that was to advance along the road. It consisted of 30 fighters. We had several armored vehicles, anti-tank guns, and a detachment of 88mm anti-aircraft guns at our disposal. The road wound higher and higher, and we had no communication with the other companies. It was quiet. Nothing broke the silence of the night. Not a single shot was fired. The moon disappeared behind the mountains, and the night grew darker and darker. According to the map, we had reached a large bend in the road that was supposed to go around the last rock to the enemy's rear. Their positions must have been high above us. Our plan was to outflank them and cut off their retreat. The road turned behind the mountain and stretched another 400 meters to the north before turning west again toward a group of peasant houses. Near these houses was the pass where the road crossed the ridge and then descended to Lake Castoria. I did not dare to move forward. I had a feeling that something was wrong. I had to wait until dawn. It was windy and cold at the pass. We huddled close to the rock. Naumann's platoon pulled an 88mm anti-aircraft gun into position so that it could cover the peasant houses and the ridge with its fire. That's all for today. If you liked the video, please support it with a like and subscribe to the channel. See you all soon.